This is Questions of Courage, a podcast from the youth section at the Goetheanum, hosted by Nathaniel Williams.
Welcome to Questions of Courage. Today I'd like to reflect on a project that is underway and that I'll be intensely involved with over the next 6 months and share a little bit about it with you. And I've already spoken about an earlier chapter of this project in January 2024 last year, an episode called Variations of Stillness and Movement. It has to do with a kind of creative and innovative approach to screen culture, something that is existentially and intimately connected with the experience of being young of so many people today. And the project that I'm working on, this chapter of this project, is called the New Pegasus Project, a contribution to modern screen culture. And it consists in taking some instruments that I have designed over the last years that in essence allow an artist to project different colors of light and to shape the movement and the form that this light takes, and to gather a group of these instruments together and to play in visual light, color, movement, and form, kind of like a quartet would, a string quartet would give a concert. And these instruments are the ones that we've used until now, were created with the help of a welder, the basic frame, but basically we put them together ourselves. And now we're working with a more professional group of fabricators, and we're trying to create a next generation which includes improvements to these instruments. Once again, I'm working together with a musical director and who's bringing together a quartet of 4 singers. And we are going to be preparing this fall and winter an artistic program. So something more than just a workshop performance, but to try to develop on these improved instruments some capacities and some abilities in the artists so that we can do more than just a very elementary and simple demonstration. This will all sound interesting perhaps, but one of the most exciting parts for me is that we're going to be trying to schedule visits to youth groups and also high schools. We hope to do 12 visits or events where we'd like to just have conversations about screen culture. You know, currently I think the most used digital platform for viewing moving images on a screen is YouTube, but it's also the most popular platform in general as far as the average number of young people that use it. And as is well known, this screen culture that we have currently isn't having what we would call an enlivening, supportive, healthy influence on many young people. And there's so much to share, to have conversations about, and to do it in a creative way where there's not just a feeling of kind of being trapped or being determined, so to say, by the screen technologies that exist, but also looking for new ways to create, counter movements, different kinds of screen culture that might have a very different effect. And on that note, maybe I have a lot of connections with young people around, and I haven't actually started to confirm the visits as of today, but we do intend to have a tour. We want to keep it pretty local because we want to be very aware of the resources that we use. And there are so many young people right in our vicinity here, and 3 countries. We're right on the border of 3 countries, and we want to go do some show and tell with these instruments, but also just to have conversations with young people about screen culture. And we're really excited about this. And if you have an idea or might like to host or work together to create that kind of a space, please reach out to me. You can contact me through the youth section webpage, which is youthsection.org. Now, besides these conversations and kind of show and tell with young people, we also want to, during this tour, have public performances. And already from my experience just with the small projects that we've been able to facilitate, I'm truly excited about what we'll be able to do as the next step. Not at all with the sense that in any way we're going to reach some exhaustive sophistication, but already the experience with young people working with these, even in small, very limited contexts and preparing small performances, has been really so moving. And it's not really comparable to other artistic experiences that I'm really delighted to be able to work on it. One of the things since January of 2024, when I last spoke about this, that I did do was I sent a really open and basic survey to some of the young people that were involved in playing on the instruments. And also, of course, when you play, you get to see everything that happens. I'd like to read some reflections that came out of that survey to you now. One of the questions I asked was, is there something that you experienced while being involved in a performance or practice that was new or unexpected for you? One of the replies was, it's really interesting to see people's reaction to this light play. I think when watching it, we experience some kind of pure feeling in the soul and not connected to emotions, but just immediate impressions that come to us from outside. It's somehow harder to have these so directly in day-to-day life, or at least to be aware of them. Another young person replied to that same question, I find the physical balance required to project light combined with being aware of the projections and of others and the colors or intensity that one uses to be a new and fascinating experience. I experienced being very present and awake, but in a dreamlike state. This was completely new to me. I think it has to do with the physical balance and how the colors enter the soul. So one comment on that reply, the instruments are built so that the player is actually balancing on a stool with one leg so that they can also swivel and direct the projection easily by shifting their weight and turning, leaning back or leaning forward. So the references to balance come from that fact. Another question I asked was, do you have any thoughts about this form of art you could articulate further? And one reply was, seeing many different young people interact with them and develop this with passion and enthusiasm is very exciting. I hope to encounter this project many more times and see it become the many different possible variations it can be. So that hope of the person who wrote that is indeed taking a next step, and this fall and winter. And it was very interesting to read these experiences from young people. I tried to pose the questions in a very open way, and I was very unsure what would come back to. First of all, a lot of the work we did was non-representational. It's moving colors, different brightnesses and darknesses. Now we are playing with 4 instruments, and we have composed a whole score that we're working with on the screen. But when you compare it to a Marvel action movie or the unbelievable velocity of pictures that come at you when you're on Instagram or Facebook, many other websites, I wondered if it would just be boring for the young people, if they would actually be spoken to. But the kind of beauty and the kind of color experience that moves through this art form, this kind of analog hand-directed lighting art, it's something that I don't know. Now, I've painted a lot, I've drawn a lot, I've done shadow puppetry, and this kind of visual music is is really something particular. And when I read these, and also when I interacted just in conversation with young people, I could see that indeed this seems to be something of a shared experience. So I hope that for those of you who are interested, you might get an opportunity to experience this yourselves through one of the public performances that will be happening, hopefully in February and March, the 2 months when we'll be doing them. You know, it is remarkable. I mean, when we just take music as an example, it's kind of a crazy metaphor. But if we imagine walking around, now, of course, some artists have done this, but just walking around with a recorder and just recording things that we hear, and then taking those recordings and putting together a audio collage that can be repeated and just played over and over again. In many ways, that's kind of the kind of screen culture that we have. For instance, on YouTube, there's a kind of recording that is very connected with just experience as it's given, perception, or naturalism, we could say. And that's really what we have as screen culture. Now, this is so interesting metaphor, right? Because with music, we all can be very moved by music that there's no words. There's no sound that we know from daily life that comes close to what we might experience through listening to a musical score or performance, or even a singer who might not even be using words, but just singing musical tones and intervals. It's a kind of experience in the very perception of sound, just fills us with all kinds of intimations, of qualities. And, you know, it's not without reason that this kind of art form is called visual music by some people, because what we're doing is we're not working with narratives, we're just working with color, movement, and form, and on a screen. And this has been something that has intrigued artists for years. In the last century, one of the most prolific and influential experimental filmmakers, Oskar Fischinger, developed a kind of basic analog live light instrument called the lumograph. You can learn more about that and other instruments through the website of Center for Visual Music, which is based in the United States. But it's so intriguing to me that this whole field of screen culture, live screen culture, building instruments that are played in real time by artists that are pretty basic and transparent like musical instruments are, and building, so to say, light ensembles or light quartets, how really there's just this open space there. And I'm particularly impressed by that because of the effects personally that I have experienced so far working with these approaches. So I'm very excited about this coming project, the new Pegasus Project, a contribution to modern screen culture. As I mentioned, if you're interested in being in touch and maybe finding a way to host and to experience something of this, particularly though looking for places, venues where we can gather young people together to have experiences, exchange, and conversation. Another thing that I'm doing is I'm raising funds for this because I want to support the light artists to have 2 months of intensive practice time before they work together with the musicians so that they can develop basic capacities, because like a musical instrument, we have to begin to develop abilities with these. And of course, I'm having these 4 instruments fabricated right now, the improved instruments. So if there's anyone out there that is in a position and interested to learn more, maybe also to support this project financially, I hope you will feel free to reach out as well. We have already submitted many grants and have some contributions already. So that's all for today. And thank you for considering support, considering collaboration. On that note, Questions of Courage is a project of the youth section in collaboration with the communications team and at the Goethe-Annum. And the Goethe-Annum is only possible in the School for Spiritual Science because generations of people have been enthusiastic and inspired by the possibilities that it offers. And through volunteering, gifts, and making connections, much has been done and there's much still to do. And if you would like to support the work, I do invite you to make a contribution. Thank you so much.